In an environment where much attention is focused on international finance centres, how does Jersey, a jurisdiction with over 800 years of independence and loyalty to the British Crown, counter the criticism currently levelled at so-called tax havens? More and more finance centres are called upon by international bodies to commit to greater transparency and information exchange. This programme looks at the level of both within Jersey, whilst reassuring legitimate investors that required levels of privacy continue to be upheld. With US President Barack Obama and UK Prime Minister Gordon Brown championing a new global finance model which threatens the independence of many well-regulated jurisdictions, Jersey is proud to talk about the facts surrounding one of the world's best-known international finance centres. Rob Christensen has been Managing Director of Volaw Trust Company on Jersey for over 20 years and has a vast understanding of the requirement for and levels of privacy of financial information on Jersey.
The island is torn, if you like, in two ways. Obviously, it's important to respect the rights of clients of financial institutions to have privacy in relation to their financial dealings. And I think that everyone can understand that. None of us want to have information about our financial dealings to be spread around amongst people who don't actually need to know that information. But on the other hand, we can't allow the right to privacy to be used as an excuse to permit people to commit illegal acts. So it is important that Jersey, along with other international finance centres, has in place laws and regulations which prevent the misuse of the island's financial services industry by people who wish to misuse it.
Jersey embraces the concept of transparency in its regulatory practices. However, international cooperation and dialogue does not exist at the expense of a client's rights to privacy concerning legitimate business activities.
Transparency is about your governance overall. It's about how you conduct business, the standards that you commit to operate to. That's the way you do business, whereas privacy is much more about an individual's information and how you safeguard that. And we have very strong safeguards and protection around how we look after information. We have a strong data protection law, and if you look at our common law, there is quite a strong underpinning and protection in there for banking confidentiality. So there are a lot of safeguards for investors who come here so they can have peace of mind about how their data is taken care of, which I think contrasts with some of the experiences in some of the large, some of the major economies where there's some very notable public losses of data. That hasn't happened in Jersey. We don't believe it will happen because there are the safeguards and the protections in place.
The Jersey Financial Services Commission is a member of IOSCO and the OECD. The Commission also works closely with the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision and the Financial Action Task Force. The work of the Commission is also evaluated regularly by international bodies.
I think the key thing about regulatory structures is twofold. One, it's a question of meeting international standards of regulations so that the same abilities, the same capabilities are in place in Jersey as you would find in every other major financial centre around the world. And if you adhere to those standards, that you have an ability to make sure that the financial services practitioners in the island meet those standards as well.
Jersey has robust data protection laws. That means private information held for a specific reason cannot be shared with third parties. Financial institutions are right to refuse requests for information that don't come through the right channels. If a local business were to do this, they would be in breach of data protection laws.
There are a set of rules that have to apply. Things like getting your consent, telling you how your information is to be handled and who else is going to be seeing your information. And one of the important things that the law likes to see, the data protection law likes to see, is that the way that your information is handled, who handles it, why they're handling it, is controlled by statute. And the financial services area is an area where there is a lot of existing legislation that controls and dictates the way that information is to be handled. And we'd also be looking for data exchange agreements between the jurisdictions, and assuming they're all in place, then what you have is two governments effectively cooperating with each other in the pursuit of an investigation of crimes and criminals or offences or fraud and of that sort of nature. So we have a very close working relationship with the UK and other jurisdictions. So those sort of frameworks are largely in place. So you do see quite a lot of cooperation between the two governments in the way that they handle this sort of information.
Where good evidence is brought forward that there is good grounds to believe that a crime has been committed, then we will cooperate and we will disclose information. In more recent times, we've entered into tax information exchange agreements, which also cover civil matters. What that means is that somebody is being looked into by their home authorities, usually a tax authority, but aren't currently subject to any criminal prosecution. And they're somewhat different, but that's a very controlled way of exchanging information. So the norm is that people are fully protected, and if their affairs are in good order and legitimate, they have absolutely nothing to fear about privacy and safety in Jersey.
Tax information exchange agreements are nothing new. Introduced by the OECD, exchange agreements assist in the fight against money laundering and fiscal crime. To date, Jersey has tax information exchange agreements with the United States, Greenland, Iceland, the Faroe Islands, the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Norway, Sweden and Finland.
These tax information exchange agreements contemplate not wholesale of exchange of information, but allow the tax authorities in those other countries to approach the island's authorities and ask for information on a case-by-case basis. Whilst there are mechanisms in place to allow the exchange of information, there are also gateways that have to be used and gatekeepers at those gateways to ensure that information isn't exchanged unless it's right and proper to exchange it.
Jersey's clients and their advisors should be reassured that the island respects and protects the confidentiality of legitimate investors. The island will also continue to support international bodies engaged in the investigation and combating of the fraudulent use of the global financial system.
I would like overseas professional intermediaries and advisors and investors to be reassured that if they choose Jersey, and there's some very good reasons to choose Jersey for their management of their wealth, then their data is perfectly safe and it's private and their privacy will be respected. We see that as an important component of being a world-class financial services jurisdiction. We're currently ranked 6th in the world by professional respondents all over the world. So clearly we are one of the world's leading financial jurisdictions, but we want to be known as a quality jurisdiction, one which meets international standards, is transparent. People can come here and know that they're associating with a brand that has a good reputation, that will match their reputation, and they can come here for expert advice with peace of mind about the privacy of their data.
People who use Jersey Financial Services businesses for legitimate purposes without wishing to illegally evade taxes, their information on their financial business is secure and kept private. But that the island is not open for business for people who wish to commit tax evasion or otherwise misuse financial institutions.
Nothing succeeds like third-party evaluation, so when the IMF come, we're very happy because we want the world to see through the eyes of an objective assessor, and a very professional objective assessor at that, what is the truth of the matter in Jersey. That said, I have to be honest, and I think there's work to do to get that message much more widely understood outside the technical environment in which financial services tends to exist. So the international bodies are one thing, but obviously mainstream public opinion and perhaps senior politicians in certain countries around the world is another. And I think what we have to do in Jersey much more in the future is to translate the high degree of respectability and sophistication of our financial centre, and as attested by various international organisations, and make sure the rest of the world knows about it equally well.